Alrighty then, it is going to be pot roast in a jar, in my case, because we're 2 people. I'm gonna make it in pints. It should give me 4 pints, but I am using the all-new Ball Book of Canning and Preserving because every meal in a jar I tried that they have was spot on. So this is pot roast in a jar. Could not be easier. I mean, the easiest ingredients ever. So your spices could not be easier. It's 2 teaspoons of salt, 1 teaspoon of ground black pepper, 2 garlic cloves sliced, 2 teaspoons of dried thyme, and a cup of red wine. So I'm gonna pour the cup of red wine in here because I'm gonna get this warm on the stove. I still gotta put my garlic in. I'm going to use 2 of my beef broths, get that hot, and add 2 bay leaves to this, as well as, yeah, that's it, because I got my dry red wine in it. This could not be easier. So imagine coming home from work. You're tired. I always have what I call dehydrated or minute rice on because my leftover white rice I dehydrate. Then all I have to do is add some boiling hot water to it, bring it back to life, and then open in a pint jar of pot roast in a jar. So if you work, it's something fantastic to not have to swing into McDonald's or anything like that, and it's good. So chuck roast was on sale. This is 2 pounds, chunky. I've got a cup of onion, diced, chopped, and a cup of chopped carrots, half a cup of celery, and then I've got 1 cup of chopped or diced, cut into chunky monkeys, potatoes. I let mine sit in water with lemon juice. So we'll layer these in our jars. That ain't hard, not hard at all. And then we'll top it off with our seasoning mixture and my beef broth that I have on the stove with a cup of red wine till we get 1 inch of headspace. And it tells you that to serve, you would open your jar, you would whisk in a tablespoon, 2 tablespoons for a quart, 1 tablespoon of flour for a pint, and that would thicken up your sort of gravy. And then I would just pour that. I would put my jar in that, of course, and it's already in it. So when you open this, if you're using a pint like I am, you would add a tablespoon of flour into a saucepan. If you're doing a quart, 2 tablespoons of flour, drop your jar in there. It's gonna make you a nice thick gravy. And I have done this with the chicken and gravy in a jar, and it's fantastic. So when one of us wants to eat something, the other doesn't, it just couldn't be easy. So this is in the back of page 273 in this new Ball Book. And there ain't nothing wrong with having a jar of food ready to eat. Normally, like I do a beef stew, I do ingredients. This, I've liked every recipe I've done out of this, and I really like that they've come up with some 1-jar meals. So I'm making it for all of us today. Woohoo! And as you cut off your onion, your celery pieces, your carrots, I have several, but I keep for stock all of my little discards so that when I go to make a chicken or a beef stock or a bone broth, I just throw some of these in there with my chicken carcasses, turkey carcasses, beef bones, whichever one I'm making, and I keep them crushed up, smash the carcasses, and then I'm ready for turkey broth, chicken broth, beef stock. It ain't hard, and there's no waste here. I like no waste. Because I paid money for everything in this, bought it by the pound. So we're set up here with all our pieces of meat, potatoes, carrot, onion, and celery. I'll take you over to the stove and show you what I have going there. This could not be easier. It ain't hard. So my lids at the back are warm, my mixture is warm, and I've taken out my 2 bay leaves, and my canner's heating up, and I'm running hot water to get my jars hot. So I'm gonna use my hands. My hands are clean, yours should be too, okay? Scrub-a-dub-dub. So here's our jar. I'm gonna start out with some pieces of meat, the chuck roast at the bottom. I'm gonna pokey Joe as I go along. It is properly called a debubbler. Pokey Joe to me. So I've drained my taters. I'm gonna drop some of these in, because I don't think you can really have a roast without that. I'm gonna grab some chunks of carrots. And remember, I can go and re-add some things and disperse these as I go along. And this is one of my pretty Orchard Road jars. I love them. Oh wait, we gotta get our onions out at the bottom. Duh, it happens. Okay, so I've taken some of the potatoes. They're actually carrots off the top. These things happen, ain't unfixable. Sprinkle some onions on here, and let me get my next jar going, and I'll take you back when it is time to put our hot liquid in and we see how many we get. But usually, I think it's 4 pints. Pints, as my niece calls them, pints. So it did make 4, but I did need to really Pokey Joe in here to, oops, and I'm throwing onions around. It ain't hard unless you make it a mess. Then I'm gonna add my hot liquid. So 4 pints came out nice. And then of course I'll debubble. I'm gonna go over and put in my liquid. Hello. Don't forget your deflotch. So we are looking for 1 inch of headspace after our liquid with our seasonings and red wine in it. And again, we're gonna Pokey Joe. It says you can well pack these jars. And this is a safe recipe, and there is no better feeling than that. Okay. That is a beautiful thing. So our headspace is spot on, and I want to make sure I have no grease, not a grain of salt, a piece of onion that's going to get between this rim of this pretty jar and the lid. So I'm going to go get a hot lid with my magic wand. We've got our warm lid. Now our ring. I do the limp wrist. This works for me for fingertip tight, and I'm gonna get this one in my canner. On to the next one. Just got 1 ladle in there. Now we're gonna Pokey Joe. And remember, I have to keep my ingredients underneath that inch as well. So worst thing can happen is you might have to take out a tater, but you sure ain't taking out a piece of that chuck roast. Don't get crazy. Lose your dang mind. Make sure no air bubbles. Just gonna kind of poke around. That's why you have a Pokey Joe. Wow, that's a lot of stuff in there. Okay, that is perfection. Let's wipe this rim as well. Get ourselves another lid. Do our limp wrist. Hang it to where your fingers can't turn anymore. I'll do the other 2 and come back. You do your thing, I'll do my thing. Alrighty then, it finished processing. I do have my fan on, so it may make some racket. I've let these jars sit here for 10 minutes, and we need to be very, very careful taking off the lid of our canner. So I'm using pot holders. I do not want the liquid on the top to drip onto my mouse toes. Oh, and good golly, it smells good. Oh, looky, looky. I'll get them better over at the table. Pot roast in a jar. Virtually impossible to go wrong with this. And it is so hot. I am gangsta canning, okay? Bandanas, hair tied up, everything's this hot. Oh, there they are, processing away. Pot roast in a jar from the all-new Ball canning book for meal in a jar. That is 4 pint jars, and that is some yummy business in there. So look at my playlist, and you will find the other people in the Jar It Up January. We got the Cannon Fever. We are storing food, and you will love every one of their channels.